This is the Tough Outs Podcast with the Damage Hitter Shield, where fathers lead, sons grow, and men are built behind the shield.
I've enjoyed my career in the time I've had being around baseball from a scouting perspective, from a team and showcase development, academy group perspective, and from an individual or professional private hitting instructor. It's all been a blast. I've had a great time, and I've learned so much because of my background with my mother and father being educators and, discipline and direct. It's been a large learning experience for me to be around other people who are raising their kids to be what they want them to be. It's also been a large learning experience for me to be put in a place of a coach who enjoys children, enjoys teaching, enjoys baseball, as well as understanding how it relates to life. So I figured I would sit down and put together a couple of ideas about the way I go about coaching my son, and coaching others that are around my son. And one of the first topics that came to mind is how I became a down-the-line dad. So obviously I've coached many years before my son was born, and definitely before he started playing, and I was his first baseball coach. He played other sports. His first love was basketball. He was a young guy, so we did that when most people would be doing socialization. We didn't really play a whole bunch of other sports, but would be doing socialization through biddy ball and all that we didn't do. But he got into actively playing basketball with a great coach, Coach Dave Wentz, and we had a blast with him. And I just got to sit on the side and watch. And I was around. I don't know anything about basketball, don't necessarily like basketball. I tell people all the time, basketball's for tall people. So I got a chance to sit back and watch and keep watching him. And what I learned by watching him is just like every other kid, kids have tendencies, right? And most boys' tendency is to look for the admiration of their closest parent. And if you have a father and a mother, typically you're looking for the admiration of your father. Hey, daddy, watch me, look at me. And we had a lot of that with Ethan growing up, just like every other father has. That is not individual to me. So as I watched him in basketball, I realized that although he was out there having his whole life, he was definitely interested in what I was doing and where I was. So I learned in that instance while watching and teaching other people and their children and my own relationship that it didn't matter who I was and who they were. What matters is there's an urge for the young man, for the child, to be looking for his father. So fast forward to baseball. Ethan's 10 years old. He's on a team that I'm helping coach. It's the only team he's ever been on. I've been basically his only coach. Obviously the other coaches on the staff, but I was his father, and so I'm more impactful than those guys. I'm coaching the game, and one of our pitchers doesn't do the pitching move properly. He doesn't come set properly. Whatever the issue is, the umpire calls a balk. And this is directly related to how I became a down-the-line dad. So calls a balk. The umpire calls it, awards the player on first, second base. I step out towards the field. I say, hey, Colin, do you know what you did wrong? He says, no. I said, okay. So I said, umpire, will you tell him what he did wrong? Umpire says, no, I'm not going to do that. So can I approach you? Yes. So I go over to him. I said, hey, I got a 12-year-old pitcher out here, doesn't know what he did wrong. You called the balk. Can you tell him? He goes, no, I'm not here to coach. Your job is to coach. I'm here to umpire. I said, all right, I agree with that. However, you called a balk. I don't know what your call is, what he did wrong in your opinion. And the only way he's going to learn that is if you tell him, because we are here to learn, right? He says, well, we are here to learn, but my job is not to coach. I'm the umpire. I said, all right. So by this time, we have walked closer to the mound. We're in the middle of the field. And I'm like, well, listen, man, I just need you to tell this young man what he did wrong so we can learn from it, move on. He won't do it again. I don't want him to balk 2 more times, have this runner go to third and home. Obviously, that would cost us a run. But more importantly, I wanted to learn how to pitch in accordance to the rules of baseball. And in this particular instance, maybe just in accordance to you as a pitcher, as the umpire. So the ump says no. So to make a long story short, I got thrown out of the game for a silent protest. I was just like, I'm not leaving until you show him, and you're not going to show him, so you're going to kick me out because I'm gonna leave, and time is running. So if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. So he kicked me out. So this is one of the few times where I didn't say or do anything outrageous. I got my stuff. I walked out to my car. And on another note, you can't be kicked out of a ballpark with your child in the stadium. So fortunately for us, his mother was there. I didn't have a problem leaving the facilities and going out into the parking lot. But you can't be kicked out. It's within the rules of USSSA, which may or may not exist at this point. PBR, perfect game. They can't kick you out of facilities with your child there. So, go someplace safe and act respectable if you get kicked out, but also keep an eye on your child. Don't try to run the team or do anything like that. So I walk out to the parking lot because I was done being respectful. And I told the umpire at the time, I'll be drinking cold beverages while you're out here in 105-degree heat. So you're only doing yourself a disservice. So I got into my car, and we're at a place called Legacy Park. So I got in my car, drove it out of the parking lot, onto and around by the soccer fields that were over there, across this little decoration weeded / rocky area. And I didn't realize, but it had some boulders in it, and I was in a smaller car, a Scion XB, so I scraped the bottom of my car up a couple times, but I got to where I could watch the game from close to the fence in right field. Actually, it was in left field. And as the game got going and our players were performing quite well, every time we scored a run, I would honk my horn just to make sure that this guy knew I was still out there. I was being kind of a pain and an irritant, but I did that, and I became a pain and an irritant. But I also enjoyed watching the game from out there. So fast forward to that same year, my son was asked to play on another team with kids his age, and the coaches that I highly respect, just like the coaches on the team that he played on, and I would go and watch those guys play and practice, and I started making it a point to watch down the line, watch from the outfield. And what I had learned from the earliest parts with basketball and all the other guys I taught is
Thousands of baseball players are trying to get recruited, and most of them are getting overlooked. Not because they're not good enough, but because they don't have the right plan. Elite Recruits is that plan. They work with uncommitted players to figure out where they actually fit and connect them with college programs still looking for guys. If you or your son are still trying to find a college fit, go check out Elite Recruits and use the code Coach Karl for a 10% discount.
us parents always seem to stand in the line of sight of our players. So they could be looking at the coach. We're just a tick away for him to have eye contact with us. And when they do that, they see our approval, our disapproval, and then we also have a tendency to make suggestions and to help. So in order to be respectful to the coach, in order to be respectful to myself, but most importantly, in order to give my son the ability to have freedom, I started standing in places that did not have direct lines of sight. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't look at me. That just meant that he had to be off the beaten path to look at me. I also started deciding that when there was a break in the play, rather than me be staring at him, which I didn't miss a thing that he did, and I still don't today, I would be looking away. I would look down, I would look away. So when there was a break and a time that I thought he might be looking at me, I'd look away. Just act like I wasn't doing anything, and then when the pitch was about to go happen, I would look up and continue to watch the game and see what was going on. And this it very quickly created a sense of independence for my son. He didn't need my approval. He didn't need my suggestions. He didn't need my authority. He just was out there to do his own thing, and I broke the habit, the natural habit of him looking for that support. Now, we hit every day, we throw every day, we're having a great relationship that we've built on good baseball fundamentals. He's been at practice with me. He knows what to do. Now, whether he's going to be successful or fail has nothing to do with the eye contact and the things that are going on between pitches and between plays. However, the things that he's thinking between pitches and plays definitely have something to do with that. And if he's thinking, I wonder what dad thinks, I wonder why dad's frustrated, I wonder why dad's happy, I'm so happy dad's happy, whatever he's thinking besides, hey, here's the next pitch, here's the next play, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I concentrate, here's how I get myself going, whatever he's thinking besides those things is wrong. So I became a down-the-line dad at that point. I would sit in the outfield, and I would always have, not always, but I would occasionally have visitors who would come down and sit with us, and I would have, some basic rules for those visitors. Hey, we're not going to discuss balls and strikes. We're 310 feet away. All umpires are terrible, which I don't necessarily believe, but going into youth baseball, a lot of umpires are terrible, but going into youth baseball, it's going to be all heart is how we see the game and very little logic. So if your son is up at the plate, then everything's a ball. If my son is pitching, then everything's a strike. It's all about our heart. It's not about what's reality. So we just weren't going to discuss balls and strikes out there. then the next thing I would tell people is, hey, if he takes a good swing, he's done a good job. I'm not concerned about whether he gets a hit or not or how he hits it. Or whatever. Let's be on time for pitches, take good swings. And we're developing 10, 11, 12-year-old players. So from the perspective of where we were sitting, we didn't know if it was a ball or strike, nor did I care. And we could just decide, hey, that's a pretty darn good swing, or it's not a great swing. And we could just watch the game. And I had a great time out there with some of my friends, with, and parents of those kiddos. And I still do have a great time. I'm still a down-the-line father, and it's become great. Now, in the high school level, I stand on the side of the field that's opposite of our team, so I'm away from their dugout. Typically at home, they're in the first base dugout, so I'm in the third. So I stand just behind the depth of the infield. My son's playing short, so his eyes, if he's playing shortstop, his eyes are looking this direction, and I'm standing over here behind with my eyes looking that direction. And there's very little reason for his vision playing to come into contact with my eyes that are probably over in this area for him. Now, it doesn't matter. He's my son, and there'll be times where he turns around and we make eye contact, and then he's now old enough that that's not important, but it's helped me in my perspective. Another reason I'm a down-the-line dad is, as a scout, I would go behind home plate to get radar readings. And I would also go down behind home plate to see the movement of the pitches. I wasn't scouting games to know if the umpire was calling balls or strikes, and nor did I care. But for hitters, I would always go off to the side and try to see the face of the hitter, the chest of the hitter. So being on the side, I was very comfortable with. I only need to get radar readings in the first inning, maybe the fourth or fifth inning, and if it's still in the seventh, eighth, ninth, then I'll go there. But the rest of the game, I could go off and see the angle of the pitch to the plate, the angle of the plays. If I like a position player, I like to watch a game that gives me an angle of the ball flying from his hand or to him, kind of on a perpendicular view. So the side is a much better place for me. And that's just my perspective. But I became a down-the-line dad based on the tendencies of what I learned through 25 years of coaching kids with parents, and how kids would look at their parents, how they would see their parents, how would they be trying to feel their emotions through vision. And by getting myself positioned off to the side and places that weren't in his line of sight was much better for me and my development with my son and helping him grow. And it was much better for him. It became kind of a funny joke where it was to be, where's Karl? When he comes to the ballpark, people who knew me would be, well, where is he? Is he up? I like to go different places because I'm entertaining myself, and then it became a game to entertain some of our friends that would want to know. And not hard to find me at the ballpark. Not a whole bunch of people that look like me there, and I will be someplace watching the game. But what I have noticed is if I'm not someplace watching the game, people will ask, send me a text message, where you at? I'm running a little bit behind, or I'm not going to make it today, or whatever the case may be, or I'm got a special hiding place today. I'm inside in the press box, and you guys don't get a chance to get up here. But that behavior has created a easier transition for my son to go from daddy's son, doing expecting what daddy wants, to being his own young player. Goal of him becoming his own young man. And at this point, when I watch the game, I still watch it the same way. How do I help him get in a better position, mentally, emotionally, and physically, to be the player he's supposed to be? But my job is now to make suggestions to that and make sure that he learns it. And as much baseball as we've done, either of us have learned everything, so I'm always trying to add. But I'm watching the game as a supporter of his, as a CFO, CEO of his company, and he's the owner, and I'm there to give suggestions, advice, and help him keep his standard. I'm not there as a fan. I'm not watching the game as a fan. If he gets a hit, I do enjoy that, but that's not the most important part. When he steals his bases, I enjoy that, but that's not the most important part. When he's making defensive plays and doing his thing on D, I enjoy it, but that's not the most important part. I know those are good things, and I enjoy those things, but what I've really accomplished, and we are getting to finally, as he's in his senior year, is when he behaves like a grown man, that's when I'm most excited. Umpire makes a bad call, no gesture, no comment. Well, maybe a comment. Maybe, hey, is that as high as we're going to go today? Is that as far in as we're going to go today? But no slumpy shoulders, no bad body language. When he's not having the day he wants, shoulders pressed back, walking forward, head up. That's what makes me excited about the young man that I'm developing. And that's the guy that I think has a chance to become the pretty darn good player. I'm not concerned about how he acts when he has success, how he acts when he does what he wants and when things are going his way. because he doesn't overreact. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't celebrate. I want him to celebrate, have a blast, enjoy the game. What I'm saying is the excessive need for celebration is just an excessive need to get hit in the head with a fastball. And that's maybe old school for some of you guys, and that's just where I'm at. And you see it on TV here and there, but you don't see it like you used to see it. And the unwritten rules of the game have changed. But because of my age and my style of play and my style of coaching, I think the unwritten rules are important. And I think the down the line dad has been great for me and my son. Now, the last thing I'll say is this. A lot of people will consider that I'm antisocial, that I don't want to get to know the parents and all that, and that's just not true. I like people. I'm enjoyable. I have a good time. I don't go to the game to make friends. I go to the game to watch my son play, to watch his teammates play, and I will make them just the same amount of suggestions that I'll make to my son if he's interested, if they're interested. But I go to the game to watch the game. I watch pregame, almost every ground ball. I watch in and out. I watch who's making cuts and relays and who the good players are, and that's just what I enjoy. And then when I stand down the line, I'll have some friends that'll come and visit me, and we'll talk. But one of my old players came, and he's over 40 years old, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not fun to watch a game with you." And I'm like, well, I didn't come here to have fun. I came here to watch the game. Now, I enjoy watching the game, but it wasn't about having jokes and that kind of thing. So that's how I became a down the line dad, and I appreciate everybody. Just remember, we're here on Tough Outs in the batter's box at Damage Hitter Studios.
If you're ready to lead your son at a higher level, follow the podcast and step behind the shield.